The wind moved across the plains like a restless ghost. It carried dust over the empty road that stretched across the Wyoming Territory, twisting through tall yellow grass and scattered sagebrush. The sun was high and merciless, beating down on the small town of Red Hollow, a place known for whiskey, cattle, and trouble. The town looked sleepy from a distance, but anyone who lived there knew better. The wooden buildings leaned like tired men. Horses stamped impatiently outside the saloon. Cowboys drifted between the general store and the watering troughs. Somewhere inside the Silver Spur Saloon, a piano played badly while men laughed too loudly. Red Hollow was the kind of town where justice was slow and cruelty was fast. And on that hot afternoon, cruelty had found a new victim. A young woman stood tied to the wooden fence in front of the McCrae ranch house on the edge of town. Her wrists were bound tight with rough rope, looped around the fence post behind her. Dust clung to the hem of her pale blue dress. One side of her face was bruised, though she held her chin high despite the pain. Her name was Clara Whitfield, and the people who tied her there were her own in-laws. 3 men sat on the porch nearby, drinking from a bottle and watching her like she was nothing more than livestock. The oldest of them, Harlan McCrae, spat tobacco into the dirt. "I told you she'd break eventually," he said with a crooked grin. Beside him sat his sons Caleb and Drew McCrae, broad-shouldered ranch hands with mean eyes and sunburned faces. Clara said nothing. She stared at the horizon. Caleb stood and walked toward her, boots crunching in the gravel. "You gonna admit it yet?" he asked. She didn't answer. His hand slammed against the fence beside her head. "I said, I heard you," Clara said quietly. Her voice was steady despite the rope cutting into her wrists. Caleb leaned closer. "Then, say it." Clara looked straight into his eyes. "I didn't steal your money." For a moment, there was silence. Then, Drew laughed from the porch. "That's rich." Harlan shook his head. Slowly, "Your husband's been dead 6 months, he said, "and somehow our cash box turns up empty. You're the only stranger in this house." Clara swallowed hard. Her husband, Thomas McCrae, had died in a riding accident the previous winter. Since then, his family had treated her like a trespasser in her own home, but today had been different. Today, they decided to make an example of her. Caleb tightened the rope around her wrists. "Maybe the sun'll help you remember." He stepped back and returned to the porch. Clara closed her eyes for a moment. As the heat burned against her skin, people from town had passed by earlier. Some stared, some whispered, but no one stopped, because everyone in Red Hollow knew something about the McCrae family. You didn't cross them unless you wanted trouble. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower. Clara's throat burned with thirst. Dust rolled across the road in lazy spirals. And then, far out on the horizon, a rider appeared. The man rode a tall black horse that moved like thunder across the plains. His coat was dark leather, worn from years in the saddle. A rifle rested in the scabbard beside his leg. His hat sat low, casting a shadow over sharp gray eyes that missed nothing. His name was Cole Turner. Most people in Wyoming Territory knew that name. Some said he used to be a lawman, others said he fought in more gunfights than any man alive. But these days, Cole Turner was simply known as the man who owned Turner Ridge Ranch, the biggest cattle operation within 100 miles, and the most dangerous man to cross. Cole slowed his horse as he approached the McCrae property. He noticed the porch first, 3 men drinking. Then, he saw the fence and the woman tied to it. His jaw tightened. The horse stopped. For a moment, Cole simply sat there, studying the scene. Clara lifted her head weakly and looked toward the road. Their eyes met. Something flickered across Cole's face. Not pity, something colder, anger. He swung down from the saddle. His boots hit the ground with quiet finality. The McCrae men noticed him. Then, Harlan squinted. "Well now," he muttered. "Look what the wind dragged in." Cole walked toward them slowly. Afternoon. His voice was calm. Too calm. Caleb leaned back in his chair. "This ain't your business, Turner." Cole didn't respond. Instead, He stopped beside Clara. Up close, he could see the rope marks on her wrists, the bruise on her cheek, the exhaustion in her eyes, but there was something else too. Defiance. She hadn't broken. Cole looked at the rope, then at the men on the porch. "You tying women to fences now?" he asked. Drew chuckled. "She stole from us." Cole glanced at Clara. "Did you?" Her voice came out hoarse. "No." Cole studied her for a moment longer. Then he reached for the rope. Caleb stood instantly. "Don't." Cole paused. Slowly, he turned his head. "What?" Caleb stepped forward, hand hovering near his gun. "That's family business." The air went still. Even the wind seemed to stop. Cole's gray eyes hardened. "She looks like a prisoner," he said. Harlan stood from the porch, irritation flashing across his face. "You planning to make this a problem, Turner?" Cole looked back at Clara. Then he drew his knife. The blade flashed in the sunlight. One quick slice, the rope fell away. Clara staggered forward. Before she could collapse, Cole caught her by the arm. Caleb's hand dropped to his revolver. "Bad idea." Cole slowly turned toward him. His hand rested loosely near his own gun, but he hadn't drawn it. "Not yet." "You want to shoot me over this?" Cole asked quietly. Caleb hesitated, because everyone in Red Hollow knew something else about Cole Turner. Men who drew on him usually didn't live long enough to regret it. The silence stretched. Finally, Harlan raised a hand. "Let it go," the old man muttered. Caleb glared, but stepped back. Cole helped Clara toward his horse. "You can't just take her," Drew snapped. Cole swung into the saddle and pulled Clara up behind him. He looked down at the McCrae family. "Watch me." The horse turned. Dust exploded beneath its hooves as they rode away. Clara held onto the saddle, still weak. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then finally she whispered, "Why did you help me?" Cole didn't look back. "Didn't like the way they were treating you." She hesitated. "You don't even know me." A faint smile touched his lips. "Neither did the rope." The ranch house faded behind them. The sun dipped lower over the endless plains, and somewhere deep inside Clara Whitfield, a feeling she thought had died months ago flickered back to life. Hope. But far behind them, on the McCrae porch, Caleb watched the dust trail disappearing across the horizon. His eyes burned with hatred, and he said quietly, "She's not getting away with this." Harlan took a long drink from the bottle. "Well," he agreed, "neither is Turner." The ride to Turner Ridge Ranch took nearly 2 hours. By the time they left the dusty road behind, the sun had begun to sink low across the Wyoming plains, painting the sky in shades of copper and fire. The air cooled slightly, and the endless stretch of grass rippled under the evening wind, like a golden ocean. Clara Whitfield sat quietly behind Cole Turner on the saddle. Her arms still trembled from exhaustion. Every bump in the trail sent small waves of pain through her wrists where the rope had cut into her skin. But despite the pain, she felt something else. Safety. For the first time in months. She wasn't afraid someone would drag her somewhere she didn't want to go. The man riding the horse beneath her had stopped that, and yet, she barely knew him. Cole Turner rode with the calm confidence of someone who had spent most of his life in the saddle. His broad shoulders barely moved as the horse climbed the winding trail that led into the hills. Ahead, the land began to change. Instead of flat prairie, low hills rose gently into the distance. Tall cottonwood trees lined a narrow creek, their leaves whispering in the wind. And then Clara saw it. Turner Ridge Ranch. It wasn't just a ranch. It was an empire. A wide valley opened between two ridges of red rock. Dozens of cattle grazed across the fields. A large barn stood near a wooden corral, where several cowboys were finishing the evening's work. The main ranch house sat on a small rise overlooking everything, a sturdy two-story structure made from dark timber. A lantern light already glowed in its windows. Clara stared. "You run all this?" she asked softly. Cole nodded once. "More or less." The horse slowed as they entered the yard. Several cowboys looked up. One of them, a tall man with sandy hair and a thick mustache, leaned against the corral fence and grinned. "Well, I'll be damned," he called out. Cole dismounted first, then helped Clara down carefully. Her legs nearly gave out. He caught her arm before she could fall. "You all right?" "I think so." The tall cowboy walked over. "This is new," he said with a curious smile. "You bringing guests home now, boss?" Cole gave him a look. "Not a guest." The cowboy raised an eyebrow. "Well then, what is she?" Clara straightened slightly. "My name is Clara Whitfield." The cowboy tipped his hat. "Name's Sam Delgado." He looked at Cole again. "You planning to explain this?" Cole glanced at Clara's injured wrists. She needed help. Sam noticed the rope marks immediately. His smile disappeared. "McCrae boys?" Cole nodded. Sam muttered something under his breath that Clara didn't quite catch, but it didn't sound friendly. "Well," Sam said finally, "anyone they're treating like that is welcome here." Cole gestured toward the house. "Come on, inside." The ranch house smelled of coffee, leather, and wood smoke. The room was warm and quiet compared to the harsh world outside. Cole poured water from a pitcher and handed Clara a cup. She drank slowly, trying not to empty it too fast. Her body wanted to gulp every drop. Cole watched her carefully. "You can stay here tonight," he said. Clara lowered the cup. "Tonight?" "For as long as you need." She hesitated. "Why?" Cole leaned against the table. "Because no one deserves to be tied to a fence like an animal." Clara studied him. There was no pity in his voice, just certainty. "Your ranch hands won't mind?" she asked. Sam laughed from the doorway. "Lady, half the men here were rescued from worse situations." Cole shot him a glance. Sam raised his hands. "Just saying." Clara felt something loosen inside her chest. For months, she had been treated like a burden. Here, she felt human again. Cole reached into a cabinet and pulled out a small tin. "Sit." She obeyed. He gently cleaned the cuts on her wrists and applied ointment. His touch was careful, almost surprisingly gentle for a man whose hands looked like they had broken more than a few bones. "You're not much of a thief," he said after a moment. Clara looked up. "What makes you say that?" "If you stole money," he said calmly, "you wouldn't still be anywhere near that ranch." She almost smiled. "You're right." Silence settled between them for a moment. Outside, cowboys laughed near the corral as horses stomped in the dirt. It felt peaceful. Then Clara asked the question that had been in her mind since the ride began. "Why do the McCraes hate you?" Cole didn't answer immediately. Instead, he closed the tin of ointment. Finally, he said quietly, "Because I beat them." "In what?" "Everything." Sam chuckled. "That's one way to put it." Cole gave him another look. Sam shrugged. "The McCrae Ranch used to run the biggest cattle operation around here," he explained to Clara. "Then Turner here bought land across the valley, and suddenly, their cattle business started shrinking." Clara frowned. "So they blame you?" "Pretty much," Sam said. Cole stood. "They'd hate me even if I did nothing." Clara looked down at her bandaged wrists. "Then helping me might make things worse." Cole walked to the window. Outside, the sky was turning deep purple as night settled over the ranch. "They were already worse," he said simply. Clara studied him again. This man was strange, dangerous, but kind, quiet, but powerful. And somehow, he had walked into the worst moment of her life and changed its direction completely. Sam clapped his hands once. "All right," he said cheerfully. "Enough serious talk. Clara, you hungry?" She blinked. "Yes." "Good," Sam said. "Because Cook made enough stew to feed the entire territory." Later that night, Clara stepped outside the ranch house. The sky above Turner Ridge was endless. Stars filled the darkness like scattered diamonds. She hadn't seen the sky this clearly in months. Footsteps approached behind her. Cole. He leaned against the porch railing beside her. "You settling in all right?" "Yes." She hesitated before adding softly, "You didn't have to do any of this." Cole shrugged. "Did it anyway." She looked out across the valley where cattle rested quietly beneath the moonlight. "This place is beautiful. It keeps me busy." "Is that why you built it?" He thought about the question. "Partly." "What's the other part?" Cole's voice lowered slightly. "So I'd have something worth protecting." Clara felt a strange warmth in her chest, then she said quietly, "I could work here." Cole turned toward her. "You don't have to." "I want to." She met his eyes. "I can cook, clean, mend clothes. I know how to ride." Sam's voice suddenly came from behind them. "Well, that settles it." They both turned. Sam grinned. "Because we desperately need someone who can cook better than Pete." From inside the house came an offended shout. Clara laughed for the first time in months. A soft, real laugh. Cole noticed, and something about that sound made his expression soften. "All right," he said, "you can stay." But miles away, inside the McCrae ranch house, the mood was very different. Caleb McCrae slammed a bottle onto the table. That rancher stole her. Harlan sat calmly in a chair, thinking. Drew paced the room. "What if she talks?" Drew asked. Harlan looked up slowly. "She won't." "You sure?" Harlan's eyes turned cold. "Because if she does." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a folded piece of paper. A land document. The name Thomas McCrae was written across it, and beneath it, Clara Whitfield. Harlan smiled slowly. "Then we make sure she regrets it." Outside, a horse whinnied in the darkness, and far across the valley, Clara Whitfield had no idea that the trouble she thought she escaped was already riding toward her again. The next morning at Turner Ridge Ranch began before the sun. A pale blue glow stretched across the Wyoming sky while the world was still quiet. The air smelled of cold earth and cattle. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote cried before disappearing into the hills. Inside the ranch house, Clara Whitfield woke to the sound of boots moving across the wooden floor. Cowboys. Men who had been awake for hours already. She sat up slowly, still getting used to the strange comfort of the bed. The soft mattress felt like a luxury compared to the hard cot she had slept on at the McCrae Ranch. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the rope, the fence, and the man who cut her free. Cole Turner. Clara wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside. Morning sunlight had just begun spilling over the red ridges surrounding the ranch. Cowboys moved around the corral, saddling horses while cattle stirred lazily in the pasture. Cole stood near the barn, tightening a saddle strap. He noticed her immediately. "You should still be resting." Clara crossed her arms. "I've rested enough." Sam Delgado laughed from nearby. "That's the spirit." Cole shook his head slightly, but didn't argue. Instead, he handed Clara a small tin cup, coffee, strong enough to wake the dead. She took a sip and nearly coughed. Sam grinned. "Gets easier after the third cup." Clara looked around the ranch. Men worked with quiet efficiency, hauling feed, checking tack, guiding cattle through the gate. It was organized chaos, but somehow peaceful. "You run this every day?" she asked Cole. "Every day. And you never get tired of it?" Cole leaned on the fence. "Sometimes. But you keep doing it anyway." He looked across the valley. "This land feeds a lot of people." Clara studied him. He wasn't just a rancher, he carried responsibility, the way other men carried guns. Sam suddenly tossed her a pair of riding gloves. "Ever worked cattle before?" Clara caught them. "Not really." Sam shrugged. "Guess today's your first lesson." Within an hour, Clara was riding. The horse Cole gave her was a calm brown mare named Willow. At first Clara felt nervous. It had been months since she'd been on horseback, but Willow was patient, and Cole rode beside her, quietly guiding her movements. "Hold the reins lighter," he said. "Like this?" "Yeah. Let the horse feel what you want." They rode along the edge of the pasture where a small group of cattle had drifted toward the creek. Sam and two other cowboys moved ahead, circling the herd. Dust rose beneath hooves as the animals shifted. Clara's heart raced. It felt dangerous, exciting, alive. Cole glanced at her. "You're doing fine." She smiled slightly. "You always this encouraging?" "Only when people don't fall off the horse." She laughed. The sound caught him off guard. For a moment, Cole simply watched her. Clara Whitfield looked different in the sunlight, stronger, braver, less like the broken woman he had untied from the fence yesterday. and something about that made him uneasy. Because people who mattered were people you could lose. By midday, the ranch buzzed with activity. Clara spent the afternoon helping in the kitchen and mending a torn jacket for one of the ranch hands. The men treated her with easy respect. No suspicion. No cruelty. It felt unreal, but peace in the Wild West never lasted long. That afternoon, Sam rode into the yard fast, too fast. His horse was lathered with sweat. Cole stepped out of the barn. What happened? Sam slid off the saddle. We got a problem. Clara paused near the porch, listening. Sam lowered his voice. McCrae riders. Cole's expression darkened. How many? 3. Where? Just outside town. Sam hesitated before adding. They weren't alone. Cole folded his arms. Who else? Sam's voice dropped even lower. Men from the Black Vulture gang. The name alone made several cowboys nearby stop working. Even Clara felt the tension. Who are they? She asked quietly. Sam looked at her. Outlaws. Bad ones. Cole's jaw tightened. The Black Vulture gang had terrorized half the Wyoming Territory. Robberies, murders, cattle rustling. They were led by a ruthless gunman named Lucas Crow. And if Crow was riding with the McCrae family, it meant trouble. Serious trouble. Cole grabbed his rifle. What were they doing in town? Sam wiped sweat from his forehead. Talking. That's all? For now. Clara felt a chill run down her spine. They're coming here, aren't they? Cole looked at her. Yes. That night, the ranch felt different. Lanterns burned late. Cowboys checked rifles and revolvers. Horses were kept saddled. Clara sat quietly on the porch steps watching the men prepare. The peaceful ranch she had admired this morning now looked like a fortress waiting for war. Cole stepped outside. You should stay inside tonight. She shook her head. I've been hiding long enough. He studied her carefully. You're braver than you realize. Clara stared at the dark hills beyond the ranch. They think I stole money, she said softly. Did you? No. Then why would they go this far? Clara hesitated, because the truth was something she hadn't told anyone yet. Not even Cole. Finally, she said quietly, my husband didn't die in an accident. Cole turned toward her. What? Her voice trembled slightly. The night Thomas died. He had been arguing with his brothers. About what? Clara swallowed hard. Land. Cole frowned. What kind of land? She looked up at him. The kind worth killing for. The wind rustled through the cottonwood trees. Cole waited. Thomas discovered something, Clara continued. What? Silver. Even Cole looked surprised. A silver vein runs through part of the McCrae property, she said. Thomas wanted to sell the land legally, and his brothers? They wanted it for themselves. Cole's expression darkened. You think they killed him? I don't know, Clara whispered. But the night he died, I heard shouting, and the next morning, they said he fell from his horse. Cole stared into the darkness. Everything suddenly made sense. The rope, the accusations, the hatred. They think you know something, he said. Clara nodded. Slowly. And if they're working with the Black Vulture gang? Sam suddenly appeared beside them. Riders. Cole stood instantly. How many? Sam's voice was grim. Too many. Across the valley, tiny lantern lights moved through the darkness. Horses. At least a dozen. Clara's heart began pounding. Cole rested a hand on his revolver. Well, Sam muttered. Looks like the McCraes brought friends. The riders stopped on the ridge overlooking Turner Ridge Ranch, and even from a distance, Cole recognized the tall figure at the front. Long black coat, cold posture. Lucas Crow. The outlaw lifted his rifle slowly and fired a single shot into the night sky. A warning, or a challenge? Cole's voice turned deadly calm. Get ready, because the war for Turner Ridge had just begun. The riders on the ridge stayed there for nearly 10 minutes. They didn't move closer. They didn't fire again. They simply watched, from the ranch yard. The lantern lights looked like distant stars scattered along the dark ridge. But every cowboy at Turner Ridge knew those lights meant danger, serious danger. Sam Delgado stood beside Cole Turner near the corral fence. his rifle resting across his arm. "Well," Sam muttered, "they're not exactly being subtle." Cole kept his eyes on the ridge. Lucas Crow sat at the front of the group like a shadow carved from stone. Even from far away, his presence carried the kind of quiet menace that made men uneasy. "They're testing us," Cole said. Sam glanced at him. "You think they'll attack tonight?" "No, why not?" Cole's voice was calm. "Crow likes games." Sam frowned. "I hate games." Behind them, the ranch hands finished loading rifles and checking revolvers. Horses shifted nervously in the corral, sensing the tension in the air. On the porch of the ranch house, Clara Whitfield stood silently. She could see the lantern lights. She could feel the fear moving through the ranch like a cold wind, and she knew it was because of her. Cole finally turned away from the ridge. "They won't come down tonight." Sam raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "They want us worried." "Congratulations," Sam said dryly. "It's working." Cole glanced toward the house. "Keep 2 men on watch." Sam nodded. "Already done." Then Cole walked toward the porch. Clara didn't move. "Are they leaving?" she asked quietly. "Not yet." She looked back toward the ridge. "This is because of me." Cole leaned against the porch post. "No, yes, it is." Her voice trembled slightly now. "If I hadn't come here, they would have found another reason." She shook her head. "You don't know the McCraes." Cole studied her carefully. "Maybe not," he said. "But I know men like them." Clara looked down at her hands. "I didn't mean to bring trouble to your ranch." Cole stepped closer. "You didn't." Her eyes met his. For a moment neither of them spoke. The wind moved through the valley, carrying the smell of dry grass and horses. Then Clara asked something softly. "Why are you helping me?" Cole hesitated. It was a simple question, but the answer wasn't simple anymore. Finally, he said, "Because someone should." Clara shook her head slightly. "That's not the real reason." Cole didn't respond, and somehow that silence told her more than words could. Later that night, the ranch quieted. Most of the cowboys slept in shifts, while 2 men kept watch near the ridge. Clara couldn't sleep. She stepped outside again, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. Moonlight bathed the valley in silver, and there, leaning against the fence near the barn, was Cole. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "You should be inside. You should be sleeping." He shrugged. "Never been good at that." Clara walked closer. The quiet between them felt strangely comfortable. "You've fought men like Crow before?" she asked. "Once." "What happened?" Cole looked out toward the hills. "He lost." "And the McCraes?" "Not yet." Clara studied him carefully. "You're not afraid?" Cole gave a small smile. "Everyone's afraid. So what makes you different?" "I don't let it decide what I do." She admired that, more than she wanted to admit. The wind lifted a strand of her hair across her face. Without thinking, Cole reached out and brushed it aside. The touch was brief, but it changed everything. They both felt it. Clara's breath caught slightly. "Cole." He pulled his hand back quickly. "Sorry." But she shook her head. "No." Silence settled again. Then Clara spoke the words she had been holding inside. "If things get dangerous, you don't have to protect me." Cole laughed softly. "Too late for that." Her voice became more serious. "I mean it." He looked at her, and for the first time since they met, his expression softened in a way she hadn't seen before. "You think I regret helping you?" "I don't know. I don't." The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. Clara realized something in that moment. Somewhere between the fence, the ride, and this quiet night, she had started trusting him more than anyone, more than she probably should, and that frightened her almost as much as the men on the ridge. But danger was already closer than they realized. Near the far edge of the ranch, one of the night guards approached the fence line. He didn't see the shadow moving through the tall grass. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him. A hand grabbed his mouth. A knife flashed in the moonlight, and the guard collapsed silently into the dirt. 2 figures climbed over the fence. Then 3. Then 5. The Black Vulture gang had come early inside the ranch house. Clara had just begun drifting towards sleep when a gunshot shattered the night. Her eyes flew open. Another shot followed, then shouting, "Outside!" Chaos erupted. Cowboys ran across the yard grabbing rifles. Horses screamed in the corral. Clara rushed to the door just as Cole burst inside. "Stay here. What's happening?" "They're inside the ranch." Her heart pounded. Before she could answer, another shot rang out from the barn. Sam's voice shouted from outside, "They're everywhere." Cole grabbed his rifle. "Unc, the door can help." "No." His voice left no room for argument. Then he ran back into the darkness. Clara stood frozen for a moment. Gunfire echoed across the ranch. Men shouted. Glass shattered somewhere nearby. She stepped toward the window outside. Shadows moved between buildings as cowboys fired toward the fence line. Then suddenly, the front door exploded open. 2 armed men rushed inside. "Black Vulture gang." Clara stumbled backward. One of them grabbed her arm. "Well, look what we found." She fought desperate. "Let go." The outlaw laughed. "Crow's gonna be real pleased about this." Clara screamed as they dragged her toward the door. Outside, Cole turned at the sound. His blood ran cold. "Clara?" He ran toward the house just as the outlaws forced her onto a waiting horse. Gunfire erupted around him, but Crow's riders were already retreating into the darkness. Lucas Crow himself sat calmly at the edge of the yard. Clara struggled in the saddle behind one of the gang members. Crow tipped his hat slightly toward Cole. "Evening, rancher." Cole raised his rifle, but Crow simply smiled. "You shoot, she dies." Cole froze. Clara's terrified eyes met his across the yard. "Cole." Crow turned his horse. "Pleasure doing business." And just like that, they disappeared into the night, taking Clara with them. Cole lowered the rifle slowly. His hands were shaking behind him. Sam approached carefully. "They took her." Cole's voice was cold now, colder than Sam had ever heard it. "Yes." Sam swallowed. "What do we do?" Cole turned toward the dark hills where the outlaws had vanished. His eyes burned with something far more dangerous than anger. "We ride," because the woman he saved from a fence had just been stolen from his life, and Cole Turner was about to start a war to get her back. The hoofbeats faded into the night. Within minutes, the ranch yard fell into a tense silence, broken only by the distant echoes of riders disappearing into the hills. Cole Turner stood frozen in the middle of the dirt yard. The lantern light flickered across his face, revealing a storm of anger barely held in check. Behind him, the ranch hands gathered slowly. Sam Delgado wiped blood from a cut above his eyebrow. "They planned that real careful," he muttered. Cole said nothing. His eyes remained locked on the dark horizon where Clara had vanished. A ranch hand approached nervously. "Cole, we lost 2 men at the fence." Cole nodded once. "See that they're taken care of." His voice was quiet, too quiet. Sam knew that tone. It meant Cole Turner had crossed a line inside himself. The kind of line that ended with gunfire. Sam stepped beside him. "You're thinking about riding after them tonight?" "Yes." Sam sighed heavily. "That's exactly what I was afraid of." Cole finally turned. "They won't keep her alive long." "Maybe they will," Sam argued. "Crow might want leverage." Cole shook his head. "Crow doesn't deal in leverage." Sam knew he was right. Lucas Crow dealt in fear and bodies. "Then we take the whole ranch crew," Sam said. Cole looked at the men standing nearby. Half of them were injured. Several horses were exhausted, and Crow's gang had at least a dozen riders, maybe more. "No," Cole said. Sam frowned. "You're not going alone." Cole grabbed his saddle. "I only need 3 men. You need an army." Cole looked him dead in the eye. "I need speed." Sam studied him for a moment. Then he sighed. "All right." He turned toward the cowboys. "You heard the man." 3 riders stepped forward without hesitation. Old Pete, the ranch's sharpest rifle. Miguel Alvarez, who could ride through a canyon in complete darkness. And Sam Delgado himself. Cole nodded. "Get your gear." Within minutes, the 4 men were saddled and ready. Cole swung onto his black stallion. The horse snorted, sensing the tension in its rider. Sam adjusted his rifle. "You know where they're going?" Cole looked toward the distant mountains. "Yes." "How?" Crow has a hideout in Devil's Pass. Sam whistled softly. That's suicide country. Cole pulled his hat lower over his eyes. Then we better ride fast. And with that, the four riders thundered into the night. The ride to Devil's Pass was brutal. Sharp rocks cut into the narrow trails. The moon slipped behind clouds, leaving the land in near total darkness. But Cole didn't slow down. Every second mattered. Clara Whitfield sat bound on the back of an outlaw's horse somewhere ahead of them, and Cole intended to bring her home. No matter the cost. Meanwhile, Clara's wrists were tied again. But this time, the ropes were tighter, crueler. Her hands burned as the horse raced through the rocky hills. Lucas Crow rode at the front of the group, his long black coat whipping in the wind. After nearly 2 hours, they finally stopped inside a narrow canyon. Hidden deep between jagged cliffs stood a small outlaw camp. Fires burned low. Several rough men sat around them, drinking whiskey and cleaning rifles. Crow dismounted slowly. "Bring her." Clara was dragged from the saddle and shoved forward. She stumbled, but managed to stay standing. Crow studied her carefully. "So," he said calmly, "you're the woman causing all this trouble." Clara lifted her chin. "Didn't ask for any of it." Crow smiled faintly. "No one ever does." Footsteps approached behind her. Clara turned and her stomach twisted. Caleb McCrae, his brother Drew, stood beside him. Caleb grinned cruelly. "Well, well." He walked closer. "Looks like you finally ran out of places to hide." Clara glared at him. "You killed Thomas." The words hung in the cold air. Caleb's smile faded. Crow raised an eyebrow. "That so?" Clara nodded. "He found the silver vein. He wanted to sell the land legally." She looked directly at Caleb. "But you and your father wanted it all for yourselves." Caleb's eyes hardened. "You talk too much." He slapped her. The force knocked her to the ground. Crow watched with mild interest. "Careful," the outlaw leader said lazily. "She's still useful." Caleb wiped his hand. "For now." Hours passed. Clara sat tied near the fire while the outlaws drank and laughed. But deep inside, she held on to one thought. Cole. He would come. She didn't know how, but she believed it. Because the look in his eyes when they dragged her away was the look of a man who never gave up. High above the canyon, 4 riders appeared on the ridge. Cole Turner studied the outlaw camp below. Lanterns flickered among the rocks. At least 15 men. Sam whistled quietly. "That's worse than I thought." Cole scanned the camp. Then he saw her. Clara sat near the fire, hands tied. Alive. Relief flickered across his face, but it vanished quickly. Sam leaned closer. "What's the plan?" Cole checked the cylinder of his revolver. "We go down fast." Pete frowned. "That's not a plan." "It is tonight." Miguel smiled slightly. "Works for me." Cole pulled his rifle from the saddle. "Once we start, don't stop shooting." Sam sighed. "Just once. I'd like a peaceful evening." Cole kicked his horse forward. "Not tonight." And suddenly, the ridge exploded with gunfire. Pete's rifle cracked like thunder. 2 outlaws dropped instantly. Chaos erupted in the camp. Ambush. Men scrambled for weapons. Cole and the others charged down the rocky slope, firing as they rode. Bullets sparked against stone. Horses screamed. Clara's heart leaped. She knew that gunfire. "Cole." Caleb grabbed his revolver. "You brought him here," he shouted at her. Before he could move, Sam tackled him from behind. The 2 men crashed into the dirt, fists flying. Cole rode straight through the camp like a storm. One outlaw raised a rifle. Cole shot him first. Another charged with a knife. Miguel knocked him off his feet with a shotgun blast. Lucas Crow stepped calmly into the firelight, his revolver already drawn. Cole dismounted slowly. The 2 men faced each other across the chaos. Crow smiled faintly. "I was wondering when you'd arrive." Cole's voice was ice. "Let her go." Crow chuckled. "That's not how this works." Their guns lifted at the same moment. 2 legendary gunfighters. 1 deadly moment. Crow fired. Cole moved faster. The shot echoed across the canyon. Crow staggered. His revolver fell into the dirt. Cole's bullet had struck him in the chest. The outlaw leader collapsed beside the fire. The remaining gang members began running into the hills. The fight was over. Cole rushed to Clara and cut the ropes from her wrists. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. Relief flooded her face. You came. Of course I did. Behind them, Sam dragged Caleb McRae to his feet. Well, look who survived. Caleb spat blood. This isn't over. Cole turned slowly, his eyes burned with quiet fury. Oh, yes, he said. It is. Dawn broke slowly over the Wyoming territory. The cold blue light of morning spilled into the narrow canyon of Devil's Pass, revealing the aftermath of the night's battle. Empty whiskey bottles, broken rifles, and the still body of Lucas Crow lying near the dying fire. Smoke drifted lazily into the quiet sky. The Black Vulture gang was finished. Cole Turner stood beside his horse, tightening the saddle straps with steady hands. His knuckles were bruised, and his coat carried dust and gunpowder, but his eyes were clear. Across the camp, Clara Whitfield sat on a rock while Sam Delgado untied the last of the ropes from her wrists. The skin was red and swollen, but she was free. Sam tossed the rope aside. Those McRae boys sure like tying people up. Clara rubbed her wrists. I noticed. Sam smiled slightly. You all right? She nodded. Yes, but her eyes moved past him. To Cole, the man who had ridden into hell to bring her back. He hadn't said much since the fight ended, yet everything about his presence felt solid, dependable, unbreakable. Sam followed her gaze and chuckled quietly. You should go talk to him. Clara stood slowly. Her legs were still weak from the long night, but she walked across the camp toward Cole. He heard her footsteps and turned. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clara said softly, You shouldn't have come. Cole raised an eyebrow. You said that last time, and I meant it. He leaned against the saddle, and I meant what I said too. A faint smile touched her lips. You always this stubborn? Only when it matters. Clara looked at the rising sun behind the canyon walls. I thought I was going to die last night. Cole's expression darkened. You didn't. Because of you. He shook his head. Because you didn't give up. Their eyes met. Again, something passed between them, something deeper than gratitude, something neither of them had dared to name yet. Before either could speak again, Sam's voice called from across the camp. Cole. They both turned. Sam stood beside Caleb McRae, whose hands were tied behind his back. The man looked furious and humiliated. Time to deal with this one, Sam said. Cole walked over slowly. Caleb glared at him. You think killing Crow changes anything? Cole didn't answer. Clara stepped closer, too. Her voice was quiet but steady. You killed Thomas. Caleb laughed bitterly. Your husband was weak. The words hung in the cold morning air. Clara's eyes filled with anger. He trusted you. Caleb shrugged. He found the silver vein and wanted to sell the land to outsiders. That was his right. It was our land, Caleb snapped. Our future. Cole folded his arms. So you murdered him. Caleb smirked. He fell off his horse. Sam rolled his eyes. Sure he did. Cole stepped closer. You can keep lying. Caleb's smile slowly faded, because there was something in Cole Turner's gaze that made even hard men uncomfortable. Then, Cole spoke quietly, but you'll be telling the truth in front of a judge. Caleb frowned. What judge? Sam grinned. The territorial marshal. Caleb's eyes widened. You're taking me to town? Cole nodded once. Red hollow. The color drained from Caleb's face, because everyone knew what that meant. Public justice. Public truth. The kind the McRae family had avoided for years. By mid-morning, the riders reached the edge of Red Hollow. Dust rose behind their horses as they entered the main street. The town quickly noticed. People stepped out of shops. Saloon doors swung open. Whispers spread like wildfire. Cole Turner was riding through town with the captured son of the McRae family, and Clara Whitfield rode beside him alive. Sheriff Dalton stepped out of the jailhouse. He squinted beneath his hat. Well, I'll be damned. Sam pushed Caleb forward. This one's got a story to tell. Caleb struggled. You can't do this. Cole dismounted calmly. Oh, we can. The sheriff crossed his arms. What's going on here? Clara stepped forward. Her voice echoed through the silent street. My husband, Thomas McCrae, didn't die in an accident. People murmured. The sheriff frowned. Go on, Clara pointed at Caleb. He killed him. Caleb shouted angrily. She's lying. Sam grabbed his collar. Careful. The sheriff looked between them. Sounds like we need a trial. Caleb's confidence cracked. You don't have proof. Cole placed a small leather pouch on the sheriff's desk. Inside were silver stones taken from the canyon. Thomas found this on McCrae land. The sheriff's eyes widened. Silver? Clara nodded. That's why they killed him. The sheriff turned to Caleb. You might want to start talking. Caleb stared around the street. Every face watched him now. And oh more hiding. And oh more lies. And suddenly, his anger collapsed into something weaker. Fear. His shoulders slumped. Fine, he muttered. Silence filled the street as he finally spoke the truth. Hours later, Caleb McCrae sat locked in the town jail. The people of Red Hollow buzzed with gossip and shock. The powerful McCrae family had fallen. Justice had finally arrived. Outside the jailhouse, Clara stood beside Cole. The town slowly returned to its normal rhythm around them. For the first time in a long while, the air felt lighter. Clara looked at him. It's over. Cole nodded. Yes. She hesitated. What happens now? Cole looked toward the open plains beyond the town. Now, you decide where you want to go. Clara studied his face. And if I want to stay at Turner Ridge? Cole raised an eyebrow. As a ranch hand? Maybe, she smiled gently. Or maybe something more. For a moment, Cole looked genuinely surprised. Then something warm appeared in his eyes. You sure about that? Clara nodded. You rode into a canyon full of outlaws for me. She stepped closer. I'd say that's worth giving you a chance. Cole laughed softly. Fair enough. Sam suddenly appeared behind them. Well, this is getting sentimental. Clara laughed. Cole shook his head. Ready to ride home? She looked toward the wide Wyoming horizon. The sun had climbed high now, lighting the endless land in golden color. Then she turned back to him. Yes. Together, they mounted their horses, and as they rode out of Red Hollow side by side, the future stretched before them like the open plains, wide, uncertain, but filled with something powerful, hope. And in the quiet rhythm of hoofbeats across the land, a new story had begun.